All right, now in this chapter 22 video, we're really wrapping up our discussion of microeconomics. Depending upon which order you view these videos in, we'll have this. I'll probably create a supplemental video on this chapter to discuss the lemon problem. And then the 10th edition of this book has a new bonus chapter. Its chapter 12 is on health economics. Which is different than chapter 12 in the 9th edition. So you may also see a video on that from me that you may watch before or after this. So here we're going to discuss asymmetric information, the effects of that, political economy, and behavioral economics. So asymmetric information is an important concept in many industries. We'll touch on moral hazard and then agents and principles. One party knowing more than another party in a transaction can lead to someone making a less desirable decision than they would make otherwise because of this difference in information, this asymmetric information, one person knowing more than another. So if you're trying to buy a used car, Honest Bob or the car salesman may know that the car is no good, and you may not. You may, if you knew as much as they did, you would choose not to buy that car, or at least would offer much less than you would offer if you think it's a high quality car. This tendency for the mix of unobserved attributes to become undesirable from the standpoint of an uninformed party is called adverse selection, because you would make an adverse selection not having access to that information, and it results in buyers or sellers with hidden information driving the other party to a worse outcome. Moral hazard is the tendency of a person who is imperfectly monitored to engage in dishonest or otherwise undesirable behavior after a transaction. So imagine a real estate agent trying to sell a house. So you agree, working with a real estate agent, hey, you sell my house for the most you can get for it. I will pay you a commission of, say, 6%. So you believe the realtor is going to act in good faith and maximize how much you are getting for your house. However, after signing that agreement, the realtor may be incentivized to just sell that house as quickly as possible, regardless of the sale price, because the way commissions work, earning you an extra $10,000 may only net them an extra $150 after they split that additional commission between the buyer and seller realtor, and then between themselves and their agency. So they may only earn an extra $150. I highly recommend all of you read the book Freakonomics. It touches on this point there and will really help you think through some popular concepts through the lens of an economist. Here, the example, we're talking about monitoring, the struggle between employers and their employees. A manager may want their subordinates to be as productive as possible. Meanwhile, the employees may want to relax and not stress out too much. So some managers may motivate employees through monitoring their behavior and suggest there will be penalties for slacking off. Others may make working there competitive by offering higher wages to anyone who can get and retain the job. We talked about efficiency wages before. Then in addition to efficiency wages, payments can be structured to provide incentives as well, like meeting certain key performance indicators or a commission earned for selling more of an item. As a business owner or a manager, you may hire people and delegate responsibility of performing certain tasks for you. How will you make sure that you hire someone who will live up to your expectations? We've talked about signaling before, like education, but also we've talked about monitoring, and monitoring is costly and can have limited effectiveness, so it's a struggle. Mentioned adverse selection before, and used cars being sold. Buyers know that some cars will be lemons. So let's say you buy a new car and you keep on having to take it to the dealership to get it repaired under warranty because it's just not working. It may be returned under some states having lemon law saying, hey, you have to offer them a refund if they keep on having issues with the car. Now, when that car is back on a dealership being sold as a used car, potential buyers do not know if that car was sold just because someone took care of it, but they had to move, so they no longer needed the car, or if it's a lemon. So this is a problem of asymmetric information, where the seller may know, but the buyer may not. But buyers know that it is possible for it to be a lemon. Therefore, they factor that into their offers. Like, okay, I'm going to offer you this much because I do not know if that's a lemon or not. If they knew it was an excellent car, like they were buying it from a friend and they knew the circumstances, maybe they would offer more. But they have to factor in the possibility that it's a lower value car, so they're going to offer less. George Akerlof identified this lemon problem. I'm probably going to create a supplementary video on that. But the result of this lemon problem is that high quality sellers, when selling the highest quality goods, may exit the market because they aren't getting the value for those because people assume that it could be a lemon, even though they know differently. Oops. All right. When you're hiring a new employee, how do potential employers convince you that they will be, or how will potential employees convince you they will be a good employee? Because they can talk a good game and they can offer references, but how do you know what is accurate and what is not? Talked about again that earning a college degree is a signal you can use to show employees that you can persevere and work through complex projects. But then there's also screening, or an action taken by an uninformed party, like a hiring manager, to induce an uninformed or an informed party to reveal information. This can be interviewing during the hiring process. This can be asking, in the case of used car buying, asking about inspections or getting a house inspected. Insurance policies offer high versus low deductibles. So you can say, hey, I want to have a lower monthly payment, so go ahead and charge me a higher deductible. And that's signaling that you're probably less likely to initiate a claim, because if you were more likely to initiate a claim, you'd be more likely to have to pay deductible, so you'd want it to be lower. So that's a type of screening where they will charge people lower premiums if they accept a higher deductible. Employers may require probationary periods before employees become full-time. So they may say, you have to work here a year or two before we bring you on as a full-time, full-fledged employee with full benefits. The response of the person offering the product or service may hint at some of the information you need to make your decision if they're unhappy with what you are offering. Let's go ahead and pause for the quick quiz, questions 1 through 4. Please attempt them yourself and then come back. All right, question 1. Looks like some Seinfeld names in this quick quiz. Because Elaine has a family history of significant medical problems, she buys health insurance, whereas her friend Jerry, who has a healthier family, goes without. This is an example of B, adverse selection, because the insurance company is transacting with a person that they'd like less to sell to because they have a history of problems. Question 2, George has a life insurance policy that pays his family $1 million if he dies. As a result, he does not hesitate to enjoy his favorite hobby of bungee jumping. This is an example of A, moral hazard, because after the transaction, after buying the policy, George is engaging in risky behavior that the insurance company does not want him to engage in. Question 3, before selling anyone a health insurance policy, the Kramer Insurance Company requires that applicants undergo a medical examination. Those with significant pre-existing medical conditions are charged more. This is an example of D, screening, because screening is how they get the shopper to reveal their health information before they price the policy. Question 4, Dr. Wexler displays her medical degree in her office waiting room, hoping patients will be impressed that she attended a prestigious medical school. This is an example of C, signaling, because the degree signals her commitment to medical education and her ability to get into a prestigious school and graduate from there. Right. So now we're going to talk about political economy. It's the study of government using the analytic methods of economics. It has evolved over the past century as the world changes and debates shift from the slow growth world to one that's shaped more by rapid technological change. Some discussions may be viewed as focused more on landowners, historical ones, and because back then they worried more about whether we would be able to grow enough food to sustain the growing population. Whereas now we're growing the food, and the problem is getting it to the people that need it. You may remember I've talked about before technological change and how it's changed over time in the study of economics. And it's why I have such a problem reading David Ricardo's On the Principles of Political Economy and Taxation, since so much of it lacks the discussion on technological change that is needed now. Public dialogue and voting may not produce solutions that make the most sense. And here we're going to discuss how we are reasonable to expect preferences to exhibit transitivity. So that's if I like A better than B and B better than C, I should like A better than C. However, depending upon how our processes play out, we may not see that, which is the condorcet paradox. I'll let you read into this with more detail here, but that's basically saying that when there are two options, the lessons are when setting the agenda, deciding the order in which items are voted on can have a powerful influence on the outcome. And the majority voting by itself does not necessarily tell us what outcome a society really wants. You may hear this a lot when we discuss, or when you hear discussions of ranked choice voting. So if you are into politics and you hear people talk about the primaries and how voting is set up, if that makes it more likely for certain candidates, whether more moderate or extreme, are more likely to get picked. And there's a whole lot that can be said there. I invite you to look up the arguments for or against ranked choice voting and think about it through the lens we're discussing here. Kenneth tended to come up with a voting system that assumed voters have complete and transitive preferences and had these properties: unanimity, transitivity, independence of irrelevant alternatives, and no dictators. Unfortunately, his result was unsatisfactory, and it led to defining Arrow's impossibility theorem, saying there's no scheme for aggregating individual preferences into a valid set of social preferences. Just a reminder here that economics is called the dismal science. So how might we set up a system, or how might politicians focus on their efforts to attract the amount of support they need? Well, the median voter theorem shows that if voters are choosing a point along a line and each voter wants the point closest to his most preferred point, then majority rule will pick the most preferred point of the median voter. The median voter is the voter exactly in the middle of the distribution. This can explain why some people use the phrase both parties are the same. They use, or at least in the past, used this logic. So read through all that, then pause and attempt the quick quiz, questions 5 through 7. Pause and then come back to me. All right, question 5, the condorcet paradox illustrates Arrow's impossibility theorem by showing that pairwise majority voting, B, leads to social preferences that are not transitive. That's because the impossibility theorem can be shown several ways. That's how condorcet paradox illustrates it. Question 6. Georgette is about to win re-election as class president against her challenger, Billy. But then Rosanna enters the race as well, pulling votes from Georgette and allowing Billy to prevail. The school's voting system violates the independence of irrelevant alternatives, C. And then question 7, 2 political candidates are vying for town mayor, and the key issue is how much to spend on the annual 4th of July fireworks. Among 100 voters, 40 want to spend $30,000, 30 want to spend $10,000, and 30 want to spend nothing at all. What is the winning position on the issue? And that's going to be A, $10,000, because the median, or in this case, the 50 or 51st voters, if you go in order, the first 30 want 0, the next 30 want 10K, the last 40 want 30K. So that median, the 50th or 51st, want to spend $10,000. So that is the answer, A. Now we're going to get into behavioral economics as a subfield that integrates the insights from psychology into the study of economics. I highly recommend going on YouTube and looking up the Limitless Clip Recipe for Grandeur right now, and then, or you can do the longer clip, Delusions of Grandeur for Limitless, and come back and continue this video, but don't get distracted to watch the entire movie. So throughout this course, we've talked about assumptions we make, like people are rational, but in behavioral economics, they try to take into account characteristics people can have, such as being overconfident or giving too much weight to anecdotal evidence or a small population of observations. People are reluctant to change their minds. I recommend looking at the video, What Causes Cognitive Dissonance? And think about it through concepts we discussed in this class. And then people are loss averse. So people may more strongly protect what they have, and because their losses feel greater than their gains. So behavioral economics tries to take what we know from both fields, psychology and economics, and use those insights to model how decision making play out to solve economic problems. We touched on game theory some in previous chapters, and I've recommended you watch the game theory problem. If you didn't, I highly recommend taking this opportunity now to watch it. It does a really good job of pairing with this part of the chapter and discussing how people are inconsistent over time and how they react to what others do. I also recommend watching videos on the marshmallow test. They're not long, and they're interesting. So maybe look up on YouTube how marshmallows predict your success, and maybe keep that in mind if you become a parent in the future. So read through all of that, hopefully watch some of those videos or all of them, and attempt questions 8 through 9 while pausing the video, and then come back to me. All right, question 8. One documented deviation from rationality is that people, A, tend to be excessively confident in their own abilities. And then question 9, the experiment called the ultimatum game illustrates that C, people care about fairness even to their own detriment. And then if you read through the chapter, you would have gotten that. Insights from behavioral economics can illustrate why people might have the responses that seem to not make sense, but they can also provide insight to how to steer thoughts the way you want. What questions would you like to see behavioral economists tackle? Maybe check to see if anybody is currently working on these issues. Are there any recently published papers or any in progress papers? There are a lot of resources you can use to check that out. And nowadays you can ask large language models or AI for questions, but you need to double check anything it says. In 2025, to me, the large language models are like first semester graduate students. They're good to have a conversation with, but you have to double check everything they say or do because they hallucinate. Behavioral economics is an important and growing area of economics, so I highly recommend you looking into it further. So read through all that, use the materials here to think through everything we've discussed, and check out the rest of the videos, but we are about wrapped up with microeconomics. Hope you continue watching. Let me know what you thought about all this, and let me know if you have any questions.